Okay, I thought we'd go over how to use the new Luminaire feature for stitching out sashing around our quilting blocks. So if you go to your, let's go to our home screen first and then choose embroidery. And then we see these subcategories. We want the Q category, that's for quilting. And that's where they've given us these 10 different sashing designs that we can choose. What makes these special is we're going to put in the dimensions that we want our sashing to be, and then the sewing machine will split those into multi-hoops for us and then help us line them up. So it's really a pretty neat feature. I'm going to choose design number 007 and hit set. Okay, now what it's asking me for are the dimensions, and here's what I'm going to be doing it on. I've created a piece of fabric here with the batting, and I've drawn on, let's pretend it's a quilt block, a 10-inch square in the middle and then 2-inch sashing all around. So where I'm going to want to quilt is right in the sashing, so in this area here. So that's what we're going to tell it about. Okay, it's asking me first for the width of my sashing, and this is actually 12 inches by 12 inches, but I don't want the pattern running all the way to the edge of my sashing, so I'm gonna just scooch that in a little bit and tell it that it's 11.8 by 11.8, and this is in inches. And then the third, so that was the width and the height. The third value here it wants is how wide do I want that design to be. So the height of the design here, which should be the height of our sashing. Again, my sashing is 2 inches, but I don't want it to be filling up the entire sashing. So I'm gonna come down off of that a little bit. I'm gonna make it 1.5 inches. You can see here it gives me a range of 1.18 to 2.95. I'm gonna go 1.5 so that we're well set there. So I'm gonna hit set. Now it wants me to hit the next button, and you can see here it's gone through and it's going to stitch out this section first in my first hooping, and then it split it for me. I will rehoop, and then it'll have me stitch out the second section so that in 2 hoopings I can get all my sashing done, even though my hoop of course is not 12 by 12. So I'm going to hit memory, and it's going to save it in my machine's memory. Okay. And right now, because I haven't done the latest update, the last thing that I saved is at the bottom of my list, but with the new update, they've changed the order, so the last thing I saved will be at the top of my list in my memory. But right now, here it is. And we see it's given me 2 options here. I can choose this first one, which will automatically step me through doing the split design, or I could choose each of these, stitch out the first section, and then manually line it up and stitch out the second. But I want to show you all the automated way of doing it. So we'll choose the first one here and choose set. Okay. Now I don't know if you can see well on your screen, and I had already scanned in the background. So let me show you how you would do that if you were doing this for the first time. You go up to your camera icon here and just choose scan and tell it okay. And now the machine's going to move and scan my hoop. And in this case, it'll be seeing the lines that I drew on my fabric. Of course, if I had a quilt top here, I would be able to see my actual quilt squares and my sashing right there. Doesn't take long. It just takes it 3 passes to do that entire huge hoop, which is cool. And then it'll have that image as our background, and that's what we'll use to line up our pattern initially before we start stitching out. So here we go with the final pass. And we can go back to middle. Okay, now if we look over here on our screen, it's recognizing and it's putting our image up. So you can see, hopefully, the lines that I drew here. And I just want to move my image a little bit. This is not centered in my sashing, so I'm going to leave my scan on, but close the window. Now I'm going to go and touch the multi-hooping button. When it takes me to my final embroidery screen, that's where I can move this design or rotate it if I need to. I think it's pretty straight, so I probably don't need to rotate, but I will scooch it over just a tad and also up a little bit. Now I can do this with these buttons here. I could use my finger also and just drag it to where I wanted it. Okay. And I just want to pay attention here that the design is about the equal distance from the top and the bottom of my sashing. And I'm also going to want it to come over a little bit to the left. Whoops, not quite that far. Getting a little heavy-handed there. All right, I'm liking the look of that pretty well. So I'll just go ahead and tell it okay. And if I wanted to rotate it, if this was askew, I could rotate as little as 0.1 degree to the left or right, but I really don't think we need to do that on this one. So we're just going to tell it okay, and we're ready to stitch. So I'm going to come over here on my machine. I'm going to put down my presser foot. I've got my needle threaded. Everything's good to go. Green means go, so I'm going to push the green button, and we'll watch it stitch out. That's a pretty little design, very dainty, quite nice. That would look lovely on any quilt. It'd also make a really nice border on a tablecloth or a napkin. It's just really cute. Perhaps a placemat. And through the magic of video, we're not going to have to sit and watch this stitch out all the way. It's only going to take 2 minutes. But we'll go ahead and speed it up so we can get to the end of the pattern here. And then we'll see what happens in the next step. Okay, and ta-da, it is finished. If we look over here on the screen, it's telling me the embroidery is finished. It says, is it okay to connect the next pattern? Yeah, let's tell it okay. Okay, and it knows what our next pattern will be in this case because it's done the splitting for us. So when we do the multi-hooping wizard, it lets us choose. On here, it already knows what the choice is because it knows what comes next. Okay, so we're just going to hit the multi-hooping button here in the bottom right. Okay, and it's asking us where we want to connect the next pattern, but it's actually already lined it up for us. It knows where it needs to connect, right? So we're going to tell it okay, and okay. Okay, so now just like it did for the multi-hooping wizard that we might have done before, it's going to project 2 snowmen one at a time for us, and we're going to put those positioning marks, our little snowman stickers, where it tells us to. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, there's our snowman sticker. And we're going to come over here to our fabric, and it has projected an image for us. So we're going to put that little snowman sticker right where it wants us to. Okay. And it makes it easy since it's projecting it as we're putting it down. We can make sure it lines up, but never fear. If I get it a little bit off one way or another, it's going to adjust that for me, but it does want it to be within these little red marks on the corners here. Notice also that when it's placing them, for whatever reason, they have the snowman upside down. But we put the first sticker, and then we're going to come over here to the screen and push the scan button. And now watch. It very quickly finds the sticker because it knows where it wanted us to put it, right? So it's going to recognize it, make any little adjustments it needs to. And then it's going to come up and tell us to put the second sticker where it's telling us to put it. So if we look over here again, now it's projected a second snowman image for me. So now I'm going to put that right where it wants me to. Just kind of sticking to my fingers this time. There we go. Again, I'm going to make sure it's stuck down really well. What I don't want to have happen is this sticker to come loose when I go to rehoop my fabric. So I want to make sure it's stuck down really well. And I can use that sticker multiple times, but if it's losing its stick too much, I probably want to switch to a new sticker. They're very inexpensive. You get a whole bunch of them for not too much. Okay, so now we've got our 2 stickers on. Now it again wants me to scan so it can find that second sticker. And it's going to go look for it. It's going to find it. And now make any needed adjustments. Okay, so now it's telling us over here on the screen, do not remove those stickers. That was sort of the whole point, was to leave them on there. But do go ahead and rehoop your material so that the next pattern and the centers of the 2 marks are in your embroidery area. So we just have to make sure those are in the hoop. And we're going to do that, and I'll pause and be right back. Okay, so now I have rehooped my fabric, and you can see hopefully that the snowman stickers are well within my hoop area that's stitchable, and also the whole area that I'm going to be stitching on, okay? So once I've done that, I'm going to come back over here to my screen and tell it to scan. It's going to go look for my snowman. Now notice it doesn't matter where in the hoop my material ends up or where those stickers are, as long as I've kept them in the same relationship to one another. So one is underneath the other, and the bottoms of the snowman sticker are pointing towards the back of the hoop, where their little bottoms are up, standing on their heads. So it's going to find my first sticker and recognize it. Okay, so it's happy about that. And then it's going to go look for the other one. Okay, it's found it. Now it's going to recalibrate where they are. Okay, if we come back over here to our screen, now it says the embroidery positioning marks are recognized. Remove the embroidery positioning marks and embroider your pattern. Okay, so I'm going to take my positioning marks off the hoop now. Put them away for future use. And I'm going to tell it OK. And now it shows me how it's going to stitch out. Now if you notice, it looks like it's not going to stitch in the right area, right? Because we already, we'd scanned this fabric before we rehooped. So I'm just going to scan it again real quick. And tell it OK. Just so I can make sure that my pattern's lining up where I want to before I go ahead and tell it to stitch out. I really shouldn't need to do this step, but I'm always a little skeptical, so I like to just cover my bases and make sure everything looks the way I think it should before I tell it to stitch. Measure twice, cut once, that sort of thing. Okay, and as I'm looking at my image over here on the screen, it looks like everything's going to match up perfectly. So we're good there. And now I am ready to go ahead and stitch out. So I'm going to put my foot down. The button's green. Green means go. So I am ready to stitch. Now we'll be able to see right away whether it hooked up. Yeah, perfectly there at the top. Started stitching exactly where the last one finished off. That's what we're hoping to see. Had there been a tiny little gap there, if something had gone wrong, the sticker got bumped a little bit or something and it was slightly off, we can always go back and just put a little extra stitch in there to connect it and nobody would ever see the difference. But if you do this correctly, you really shouldn't have that problem. It just does such a nice job of joining your patterns. I think you'll just really be tickled with the way it turns out. Okay, again, through the magic of video, we're going to go ahead and quickly jump to the end here. This is only taking a minute to stitch out, but we don't need to watch that real time. Okay, and the screen says that we're finished embroidering. It gave me a smiley face, so I'm going to tell it okay. Let's come over here and look real closely maybe at that stitching area. Just did a really nice job of joining that off. It might be off by just a fraction of a millimeter, but no one would ever see that on a quilt. Really very, very good job matching that up, and it's a beautiful little design. So I'm just tickled that Luminaire gives us the ability to do this. So anyway, that's it for now. Thanks, guys.